Hi, fashion lovers. Welcome back again to Eleganza TV. My name is Eunice, and in today's tutorial, I will show you how to cut and sew this Ankara Princess that Bustier dress with a stylish gathered skirt. It's a simple and beginners friendly tutorial. So if this is something you're interested in learning, do keep on watching and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you're yet to. So let's get started. Now let's go over the materials that you need to make this dress. You will need an Ankara fabric, a matching lining, and a Duchess Satin for the skirt parts. I'll be listing the quantity of fabric that you will need in the description box, so be sure to check that out. So once you have everything ready, let's move on to drafting the pattern. Next, to draft the Princess That Bustier pattern, so I'll start by ruling a straight line on the top of my pattern paper, which is serving as my starting line. You're going to start by drafting a basic bodice block. So from the starting line, I marked my half length of 18 inches. Then I went ahead to mark my underbust point of 14 inches and my shoulder to nipple, which is my bust point of 10.5 inches. So after marking out the points, I'll use my straight ruler to connect to form a straight line. And then on the starting line, I will be taking my shoulder divided by 2 and mark a point there. Then I'll come down from that point by 1 inch for my shoulder slant. So I also mark my shoulder divided by 2 on that shoulder slant. Then having done that, I'll be taking the neck wideness. I'll mark 3.5 inches from the starting line and I'll use my straight ruler to connect that to my shoulder slant. So after marking the neck wideness, I'll be marking the neck depth of 7.5 inches because I want it to be like a deep V neckline. Then I'll use my curved ruler to just connect to my neck wideness like so. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark my arm side length. I came down from my shoulder slant by 8 inches. And then I'll rule a straight line on that point, which will be called the chest line or the armhole line. So then after doing that, I'll also be marking my shoulder divided by 2 on that chest line and I'll connect straight up to my shoulder slants. So after getting all the horizontal lines, I will go ahead to label the lines. I'll label the first line, which is my chest line, then my bust point, my underbust, and the half length line. So having done that, on the arm side length, I'll get the midpoint of what I have there. Then on the midpoint, I'll go in by 0.5 inch. Then after doing that, on the chest line, I will take my round bust measurement divided by 4. So the 3 points that connect from the shoulder slant to my bust measurement, I will connect using my armhole curve. So the next thing I'm going to do is to divide my bust span into 2 equal halves. And I started marking that point for my bust point to my half length. Then I use my straight ruler to connect the points together. So I'll be marking the dots on the half length. On the center front, I marked 0.75. Then on the side part, I marked 1 inch. Then on the underbust, I marked 0.75 on the center front and 1.5 inch on the side parts. Or you can do 1.25 on the side part of the underbust line. So having done that, I'll be connecting the 2 points to form my dots. And then I'll use the curved ruler to place from the both dart legs to connect to my bust points. So guys, the next thing I'm going to do now is to get the princess dart shape. So I place my curved ruler from my bust point to the midpoint of the armhole. Then I connected to form a curve like this. Then having done that, I came down from the midpoint of the armhole by 1 inch. Then I'll also be connecting to my bust point. So I extended the second princess dart line with 1 inch. Then after marking that point, I will connect again to form a new armhole curve. So after getting the princess shape like this, I'll make all the important lines visible with my marker. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark my body measurement. I've marked my bust measurement already. On my half length, I took my round waist divided by 4. Then I'm going to replace the darts I have on the underbust to my waistline. Then for the chest line, I'll replace the princess dart of 1 inch to the side. And then I will connect the both points together like this. And after doing that, I went ahead to add my sewing allowance of 1.5 inches for the bust and also for the waistline. So before I go ahead to cut out my princess darts, I will come down from my bust point by 2 inches, which is going to be my bust dart. So you know the difference between the front and the back half length is the bust dart. So after marking the 2 inches, I connected to form a straight line to my bust point like this. So at this point, I'm done drafting the Princess Dart Bustier. So I will cut out the pattern and close the bust dart and show you how it should be. So just watch closely and see the way I cut it. So guys, after cutting the Princess Dart pattern, I closed the line on the bust dart, and then you can see that after closing it, there is a difference in the measurements on the side. So I'll just go ahead to just connect the line. So after closing it, I'm going to curve that Princess Dart part. I just came in a bit to make it have a curved shape so it will not be piercing out. So guys, this is how the Princess Dart bustier should look when you're done cutting. And now we are going to cut out the back pattern. So I started again by ruling a straight line, which is serving as my shoulder, and then I marked my half length, and this time around the half length is going to be 16 inches. So I remove my 2 inches, which is my bust dart. Then after marking the point, I will connect to form a straight line. So next, I'm going to mark my zipper allowance. I marked 1.5 inch for the zipper allowance. So I'm just going to connect to my half length line. And then on my shoulder line, I will be taking my shoulder divided by 2 and then come down by 1 inch for shoulder slant. Note that you're marking your measurement from your zipper allowance. After the zipper allowance, then I mark the neck wideness of 3.5 inch and I make the neck depth to be 1.5 inch. So having done that, I'll be connecting all the points together as shown. And then for my shoulder slant, I came down by 8 inches, which is serving as my arm side length and my chest line. So I connected to form a straight line on that point. Then I'll also be marking my shoulder divided by 2 on that chest line. So guys, after doing that, I connected straight to my shoulder slant, which is the same thing I did when I started drafting the front pattern. So next, I'm going to get my armhole curve for the back. You measure your arm side length divided by 2, come in by 0.5 inch. Then mark your bust measurement divided by 4 on your chest line. Then after doing that, you connect the 3 points from your shoulder slants to the midpoint of your armhole to the bust measurements. And then so on my waistline, I will be taking my round waist divided by 4, and I'll also add that allowance of 1 inch. Then after doing that, I'll connect that to my bust measurements. And so I'll add 1.5 inch, which is my sewing allowance, to the side part. So let me just illustrate how the dart is going to be like. So you're going to measure your actual round waist and divide it by 2. Then mark a point there. Then whatever you have there, you're going to place it on your chest line or just rule a straight line to your chest line like you see me doing. Then after doing that, you mark 0.5 inch on both sides of the line and then connect to the top. So I like to come down by 1 inch from my chest line, which is going to serve as my dart length. So I connected the 2 ½ inch points like this, and this is how the dart is going to look like. So I hope you understand that part. Now the next thing I'm going to do before I cut out my pattern is to remove zipper board from the zipper allowance. So what I'm going to do is divide what I have on my zipper allowance by 2, and then I will connect that straight up to my chest line. So after removing that allowance from the zipper, I'm going to replace it back to the side part. So I marked 0.75 on the side part and then I connected to my bust measurement. So this is going to be my new back. Then after doing that, I decided to mark the zipper allowance of 1.5 inch again so you see how it looks. So this is how it should be. Now the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut out my back pattern. So guys, the next part we're going to draft is the skirt part. So first of all, I'm going to mark my waist to hip length of 8.5 inch. and I'll rule a straight line on that point. So I label the starting line my waistline and the second one my hip line. So on my waistline, I marked my round waist measurements divided by 4, and then I added sewing allowance of 1.5 inch. So for this front part, I will not be fixing any darts, but I'll be using this front pattern to cut my back. So I added 1 inch for that allowance. Then on the hip line, I took my round hip divided by 4 and added my 1.5 inch sewing allowance. So I connected from my waistline to the hip line. I connected the sewing allowance together, and then I also connected the hip line to the dart allowance. So guys, I want to go ahead to mark the darts because I want to use it as a guide to get this stylish design for the gathers. So I measured what I have on my waistline and divided it into two. Then after marking that point, I'll use my straight ruler to connect straight down to my hip length. And then for the dart, I'm going to make the dart length to be 5 inches. And then I will mark 0.5 inch on both sides of the waistline and connect like this. So to get the curve shape, on the side part, I came down by 4 inches, or you can make use of 5 inches. So after marking the point on both lines like this, on the center front, I will come down by 6 inches. So this is not a specific measurement for the design. If you want, you can increase yours or reduce yours depending on your body type. So I used 4 inches on the side and 6 inches on the center front. Then after doing that, using the dart point, I came out by 3 inches to the side part. I connected from that 3-inch point to the center front to form a curve, and then I also placed my curved ruler from the side part to that same 3-inch point. So next, after getting this curve design, I came down by 1 inch from the point on the hip line because I want the design to come down a bit. Then after doing that, I connected from that point to the curve on both sides. So guys, I'll go ahead to explain how I got the curve shape again. On the side part, I came down by 4 inches. So like I said, I'm using the pattern to cut my front and my back. So that is the reason why I have 2 points there. So I marked the 4 inches on both points. Then moving on to the center front, I came down by 6 inches. Then for where the both curves are going to meet, I came out by 3 inches from my dart line, and then I connected the 2 points together like this. So this is how I got the curve design. And so then I'll mark all the lines and make it visible and then cut out the shape. So after cutting the front part, I placed on the pattern paper that is left to cut out the back. Then I added my zipper allowance. And then I also went ahead to trace the dart point to the back pattern. So after tracing the dart to the back, I went ahead to cut out that dart allowance from the front pattern. So next, I'll show you how to place on the fabric and cut. So guys, I went ahead to cut my pattern on my fabric. I added sewing allowance of half an inch on the shoulder, on the neckline, on the armhole, and also on the princess seam and the half length, except for the side part, just like I did for the back. So I took out the pattern already for the front, so that's why you can't see it right now. Then I also went ahead to pad my bustier for the princess pattern, and I iron interfacing and also pad it. And then after doing that, I also cut my lining the same way. So if you want to pad your princess dart bustier, you can see the way I pad it. So for the back pattern, I went ahead to just cut open on the darts to make it easy for me to stitch. So this is all for the half length. And then for the skirt part, I cut my front pattern on fold. I added half-inch seam allowance on the waistline and also on the bottom. I already added sewing allowance on the side part before. And the same thing I did for the back, I added half-inch sewing allowance on the top and also on the bottom. And then I cut open the dart line. So before going ahead to cut open the dart line, ensure that you mash it up with the dart on the half length, that it is equal, so that when you fix the skirt part and the half length, it is going to sit on the same line. So guys, this is where we end the drafting tutorial. In the next video, I will show you how to join the princess seam and also how to stitch that gathered skirt design and finish up with the dress. So in case you've not subscribed to the channel, ensure you click on the subscribe button so you'll be aware when the sewing tutorial drops on the channel. So you guys, see you in the next one.